You know, as much as I love bringing untested piles to tournaments with a money entry, sometimes nothing hits quite the same as bringing a tried and true combo deck to one of these things. And turns out, sometimes they're even good. Back in February, oh god, it has been a while since I've posted a tournament result. I ended up getting 3rd place on Bolas Citadel at the Pull and Play Canadian Highlander tournament. Pull and Play is this great store in Sacramento, so if you're in the area, I highly recommend checking them out. I've had no complaints with playing in their events. Just a great way to jam some Highlander and maybe get a dual land in the process. The list I brought to this event was just Esbird Turbo Citadel. The point of the deck is you're trying to get Bolas Citadel out as fast as possible, typically with a very fast Tinker, and then just kind of storm off from there. You can go Tendrils of Agony, you can go Aetherflux Reservoir. Those are usually your 2 main ways to do it. Aetherflux Reservoir, Dividing Top, and Citadel will just combo kill your opponent. You run some silence effects in there as well for some interaction. The version I ran really cut down on some of the more cute cards and was running a really lean list. Since this was in February, the list has changed since then as balance has gone to 1, notably. So the classic combo deck board wipe now actually costs you a point, unfortunately, but the deck is still very playable in the current Canadian Highlander metagame, we'll call it. It's so decentralized, but gotta call it something, I guess. So while the list I brought in February is not the most up-to-date list, as it's about 7 months old, the core is still very much there. It's still a very playable deck. So if you want to take this to one of your own events that you might be participating in, the link's in the description below. Check out the Canadian Highlander Discord server. They've got updates for the list to take a look at. Now you might be thinking, but H-Puzzle, what is the benefit of playing a seemingly pretty boring combo list? Well, 1, it wins. You just get people. You're mulling for very fast Tinker plays. But 2, I actually don't think they're all that boring. I just really like the gameplay of having to work around what your opponent's doing to actually get the win. And it's one of the reasons that I actually quite enjoy playing these type of combo decks. And of course, for better or for worse, the rounds end pretty quickly, either winning or losing fast. I'd done a lot of gold fishing with Turbo Citadel up to this event, but I hadn't actually played it in anything. I hadn't played it against a real person, so I didn't really know what to expect bringing it to this tournament, so I'm really happy with 3rd, a deck I'll probably bring to an event sometime in the future once I get off my favorite quirky brews. But with that out of the way, how did the deck perform? Let's get into the games.
Who is that? Adian smiled, glowing.
Round 1, we were up against Esbird Control, which is an Esbird green Nadu variant that is heavy on the control and is really only using green mainly for the combo, but a couple of other key pieces as well. So going into this match, I had to be really wary of interaction. You know, black's got Duress, Thoughtseize, Inquisition of Kozilek. Blue, of course, has all the counter magic. Ooh, fooled ya. You forgot the type of deck we're on. We are going fast. Game 1, I had Tinker in hand, but I played my turn 1 Surveil land and immediately saw Bolas Citadel on top. I had a really fast Tinker hand, and I was like, well, this is the type of day we're gonna have. We're gonna see Bolas Citadel on top with Tinker in hand. What do we do? I actually had to end up tutoring for Brainstorm of all things to get Bolas Citadel back into my deck. Unfortunately, my opponent did find one of their hand attack spells, Duress, and Duress took Tinker, but fortunately for me, I drew a Noxious Revival and was able to immediately, the next turn, Noxious Revival Tinker back on the top after they had tapped out, and was able to silence into Tinker to Bolas' Citadel and win the game from there just off a classic Citadel play. I saw Tutor and I was able to go from there. I remember in this game there was a line that my opponent Randy could have taken, which neither of us thought about until after the game, where he had a Psychic Frog in play, and it might have been the move to just discard most of his hand to Psychic Frog to punch as much damage into me as possible, because I think he would have brought me down to like 2 or 3, and there's really not a lot you can do as a Citadel player at such a low life total unless you get pretty lucky. Game 2 was Pinnacle Turbo Citadel gameplay. My hand was 4 lands. One of them was an artifact land and Vampiric Tutor. So turn 2, I got Duressed by my opponent, and in response, I Vampiric Tutored to put Tinker on top. My opponent saw that I just had a bunch of lands, and then I drew Tinker on turn 3, tinkered the artifact land away for Bolas Citadel, and I won from there. All in all, a great example of what Turbo Citadel can do. It can put things out really fast and go for the combo super quickly. My opponent's interaction just didn't quite line up at the right times with what I had, and of course I had things like Noxious Revival and Silence to help protect me. All in all, strong round. On to the next one.
Oh, Zubul, you mismatched cash piano, I'll tear you to pieces!
Did you know that the deck, with all the hand attack spells, Opposition Agent, and Moon effects, all with a fast clock, is really bad for Turbo Citadel? Game 1 was kind of a weird one. My opponent was able to stack threat after threat after threat against me, but my opponent didn't really have hand attack or any interaction that particularly lined up well with my gameplay in Game 1. To be fair, they didn't know what I was on. I mean, they're not keeping 4 Turbo Citadel, right? While my opponent was able to get threats, I had balance, and I was able to slam balance to wipe their board, which bought me just enough time to find Tinker off the top, and I tinkered, and I went for our Bolas Citadel win. I believe that one was again with Aetherflux Reservoir combo. So game 2 was weirdly enough a battle over my blue-black talisman. It was my only black source, and I really needed it to Tainted Pact. Unfortunately for me, they Kolagons commanded it, and I Tainted Pact in response. I was able to find Tinker when they did that. However, they had reanimated Troll of Khazad-dûn, and it smacked me around way too much, and my life total was just too low for me to properly go off. So unfortunately, we lost that one. Game 3 was rough. Game 3 was rough. I almost got a Mystical Tutor underneath them because it's Rakdos. We're looking for hand attack. We're looking for Opposition Agent. We're looking for all those little fun companies. You know, Blood Moon effects really mess us up if we're not careful. I almost got this Mystical Tutor underneath them, but they had the timely Opposition Agent, and it completely just knocked me out of the game. Tried to dig for balance to the best of my ability, but unfortunately I was not able to find balance, and this match went to the Rakdos Midrange player. It's a really good deck against me, and they piloted it properly to their victory, and good job to them. Okay, rough match out of the way. Let's continue on.
The number one question I get asked from new players is, how do Planeswalkers work?
Game 1 in this matchup, I kept a hand of some lands, some artifacts, and some tutors, as one does with this deck. My opponent's interaction came just a little too late and wasn't able to properly line up with my speed, and I was able to sneak Bolas Citadel under this deck. Notably, a Narset Parter Avails was making this incredibly awkward. Thanks to my opponent, who was incredibly patient with me, constantly missing a Narset Parter Avails on the field. It made all of my cantrips, if you could believe it, incredibly awkward, and I just kept drawing cantrips and finding them off the top with Bolas Citadel, so it took me a couple of turns to finally get there, but we did get there in the end. Pro tip, by the way, do not play Demonic Council when your opponent has, I don't know, Soul Guide Lantern. Maybe don't play it. Game 2, my opponent had a faster hand, and I had a slower hand. Unfortunately for them. Fortunately for me, they were struggling with land drops. They were able to get a Wishclaw Talisman down, which was pretty scary, but I was able to use Into the Flood mod to bounce that back to their hand, effectively time-walking them, and this bought me the additional turn I needed to tinker into Bolas Citadel and go for the win from there. You might be noticing that there's going to be a little bit of a pattern and linearity when it comes to how this deck wins. It's in the name.
I want room service!
Game 1, I was able to turn 1 Inquisition of Kozilek them and immediately ripped Timevault out of their hand, lucky me. I did do a slight misplay in this game that could have been punished if I wasn't getting lucky with my draws, where my opponent Abrupt Decayed my only artifact, which was going to, completely stop me from tinkering. But, being the luck sack that I am, I immediately top-decked a 0-mana artifact off the top, played it, tinkered, and, say it with me, folks, found Bolas Citadel for the win. So game 2 was actually kind of a nail-biter. I kept a, kind of questionable hand. It was Inquisition of Kozilek, Noxious Revival, 3 Fairy, and 4 lands. So I shouldn't say kind of questionable. That was an actively questionable hand. The deck's goal is to land a very fast tinker into Bolas Citadel. Let's keep a hand that does not play to that strategy at all. I'm once again able to turn 1 Inquisition of Kozilek them, this time ripping away a Whir of Invention, and then turn 2 I Noxious Revival it back on top to Inquisition of Kozilek them again. This time I'm able to grab a newly drawn Spellseeker, lucky me. My opponent plays Talismans into Emery and is able to combine it with Life from the Loam to put Uro into the grave and then immediately escape Uro from the grave. So this is a pretty rough situation. I Limduel's Vault at end step and I'm able to set things up to a point where I'm able to draw and then immediately hard cast Bolas Citadel with the help of Dark Ritual on my next turn. Now, this is the first time in the tournament where Bolas Citadel whiffs. Now granted, I am able to get a lot of things set up, notably things like Tameo for a blocker, Sensei's Dividing Top, Thopter Foundry on the field, and I end with a Tinker in hand, but I brought myself all the way down to 1 life, and I whiffed. On their turn, I bounce Uro before attackers are declared, and they start churning through their deck. The entire time on this turn, I'm just thinking, do not draw Walking Ballista, do not draw Timevault, because previously they had crop rotation for Tolarian Academy, so either of those cards would be an absolute death sentence for me at 1 life. Fortunately for me in this Nailbiter game, they don't find it. Goes to my turn, I attack with Tameo to make a clue, sacrifice 2 artifacts just to be safe, get my life total to 3 with Thopter Foundry. I tinker, I find Aetherflux Reservoir, and through the skin of my teeth, I win the round. With a 3-1 record and a 4-round tournament, this puts me in the top 4 due to player count, so we're on to the semifinals.
Are you kidding me? The season can't end like that!
Unfortunately, this round is where the dream ends. Game 1 is a prime example of my inexperience with the deck finally truly showing through and punishing me. My opponent wasn't putting any pressure on me, but they did play the One Ring the turn I wanted to go off. Now, I was worried about something like Cathar Commando coming in next turn, destroying Bolas Citadel, and that being that, so I really had 2 options here. I could either wait it out and just hope they don't get artifact removal, or I could go for it. If I go for it, at this point I'm effectively locking myself out of Tendrils of Agony as a win con. I'm looking for Aetherflux Reservoir combo to set up, and the goal is just get your life total high enough and then at their upkeep just blast them for the win. Unfortunately, this did not come to fruition. This is a very risky line. Not only did it not come to fruition, I was way too impatient and greedy. I ended up sacrificing a Yawgmoth's Will that I had in my hand to set up for next turn for an LED activation. I ended up shotgunning myself with my own Tendrils of Agony just to keep going. I was just making blunder after blunder. I was determined to find this Aetherflux Reservoir win that never came. Due to my greed absolutely consuming me, and my opponent's Blood Moon messing up my plays, I had to Loyal Inventor for a Mox Diamond instead of something like Aetherflux Reservoir just to keep myself in the game. I was just unable to get there, and I lost Game 1. There's truly not much to say about Game 2 other than I won. I got a turn 1 Citadel off, City of Traders into Mox Diamond, into Tinker Away Mox Diamond, Bolas Citadel. Now, I did end up whiffing for the 3rd time this day on turn 1, but my opponent didn't have the artifact removal, and I was able to get there turn 2. Game 3 is when the famine finally met the feast. This is when all my luck so far with the deck finally ran out and came crashing down. I took a mole to 3 with land, cantrip. Even without my opponent's start, I don't know if I got there, but my opponent also had an absolutely cracked start. They went turn 1 Luminarch Aspirant into turn 2 Archon of Emeria. Yep, I didn't find balance, and that was game, and my opponent on Boros there, Z, went on to win the duel in the finals versus, I believe, Teamer Turns. So that was really awesome for them, and they are currently the person at Pull and Play who has won every single duel land. So if you want to come down to Pull and Play, you gotta beat Z on Boros. really, what can you say? It's a tuned combo list. It did its job. It did what it was supposed to do really well. I think if I was a more experienced player, I could have gotten that semi-finals win, game 1, into that game 2 win. That would have gotten. I've been kicking myself for how greedy I played that game 1. I should have just waited. Just hold off a turn and just wait for the One Ring's protection to disappear. Pros and cons of the deck. Pros, fast, gets wins, goes under a lot of decks really quickly. Cons, you gotta like the plan of tinkering into Bolas Citadel. Artifact hate can be pretty rough on it. I do like that this is a combo deck in Canadian Highlander that does not play to the graveyard too much. You can avoid a lot of the common graveyard hate that's running around. You don't run all that much interaction. You're just going, because if that interaction doesn't have a target, it's dead off the top of Citadel. So this deck is trying to minimize the amount of dead draws off the top of Citadel so that you can just go. All in all, just a combo deck I had a bunch of fun with that I definitely plan on bringing back to a tournament in the near future. Again, once I get off my pet decks with no testing streak I've been having recently. As always, thank you all so much for watching. I know it's been a long time since you've heard anything Canadian Highlander related from me, but we're gonna get that changed. So thank you for watching, and as always, have a great rest of your day.